I couldn't believe it when I was young. What if I told you that I had somebody like Lily who I looked up to, but I couldn't talk to? So let me explain the whole thing when it comes to the pandemic. There was this thing called the service machine that took over the world a long time ago because of really jealous people. We were already able to create ships and lands called Mandela effects, right? So Christopher Columbus, taking over, the land from the Native Americans, that's a Mandela effect. You think it's not. What a Mandela effect actually is you literally being somewhere else and affecting another place literally in a series of time. What you're doing is you do something in your area and your affected area, another place doing to have a higher status, like being a celebrity, being a CEO, being something of a high status, something of a high energy, something of a king status, and you doing something that is replicated somewhere else in the world. What the government did at NASA is they made the service machine in order to make things like that in an instant, but an instant for the wrong purpose. Is to make sure that kids keep the mentality that jocks are jocks and nerds are nerds, that nobody can come up. You're born where you're born in society. It is nothing more. Literally, it's from people being butthurt. Literally, from growing up, literally, and having to be kicked out of high school. It's some really tragic shit, but you can't go overboard. There's some people who actually graduate high school who live beautiful lives that actually adapt to this world, but they made the rules specifically for the people who just want to destroy people. You got past what I couldn't. I just realized that it wasn't just literally when I was in high school. When I was in 7th grade, I recognized I had a teacher named Mr.Pledger who actually saved me from a lot, and I understand, like, literally, why does he literally have so much faith for me, even though I act up, even though I retract on myself, even though I used to be his favorite student, I'm acting really perverted, I'm doing that. Why is he still, like, literally doing this to, like, literally? And I realized it's all because of he's a grown man. And once I realized how gangs work, I realized that Mr. Pledger was trying to be my best friend, and he was trying to compliment me intellectually. I went through this whole phase in life where I wasn't getting a praise for being an intellectual like how you should. So I went through thousands and thousands and thousands of things of reverse psychology. What kept me sane is literally I saw what happened to people who use reverse psychology. And so literally over and over again. And so I was this guy's best student. And literally there was this thing like, where I used to be a special lead where I was behind on division. And so we would do things like packets, right? So we would do simple shit like we would try to see where you're at because we were in special ed, and like, okay, so literally we'll try to see if you're ready for algebra or not. So literally what they did was they put me through a series of tests, and I went through every single packet with fucking ease. It ended up doing algebra in the beginning of 7th grade. I started off with this addition, and I ended off with algebra in 7th grade. It was based off what I was doing before, but it was more constant. I was in regular ed all the way from kindergarten to 3rd grade. To 3rd grade, I went to a different district. So when I got there, I really met up with a really nice teacher, and I was showing him my comic book. And little did I know, later on in the future, I'm wondering, how do I ever get women going through struggles in high school, this and that. And my teacher told me that I was getting them the entire time, and that this is child's play. Once you actually realize how girls work, oh, he's the guy who's actually doing it. So we know a girl is telling you, I'm only going out to make him jealous. Guess what happens if a teacher says, I'm only doing this because I don't want him to end up like you? This got way more serious. What ended up happening is there was this thing called the truth serum back in the day where we actually figured out a way to try to attempt to make humans immortal. I believe like we are immortal now, like really at a certain point. I believe there's certain requirements, like you can die if you fuck up too much. If you commit a top class felony, you can go to jail, and you can be disintegrated, or fucking there's other shit. And the reason why I'm like, Lily's, I didn't think it was a retarded concept. I didn't think it was bad at all. Because when I was younger, I was wondering what would happen if we could live forever. And now I'm like, you know what? That's fucking awkward. Fucking there's too much shit to life and death, and that's why it's a great concept. And the crazy thing is this. When I figured out about that, I'm like, it's not fucking bad. If we do come immortal, just because, evolution technology, fucking we're able to live forever. It's just like George Washington, because you know why George Washington died? It's because a certain amount of medicine that was able to be cured today couldn't be cured back then, and that's how George Washington died. So I just figured that we were just getting closer to technology if we were becoming immortal, and that it was exactly how I pictured it in childhood. And yes, I don't find it awkward at all. But what if I told you that we have to be immortal because of what's going on in the world? Because of people not accepting responsibility, what happened is literally we have to make sure that we live longer because of global warming. Global warming is so real to a point where we have to make sure that we live extra lives in order to put the world back together, because we have to create a mirror in the sky. And it's going to take a long time, like literally, to create that mirror. because we let humans roam free. They kept on abusing the in system because of what was going on with the gangster mentality. Fucking we're gonna control the situation. We're gonna hack your fucking criminal records. We're gonna pretend you have a record or don't. We're gonna fucking gun you down with guns. That all gone the way of revolution because people in the dark internet were taking too many sides. And Lee, now that I know what freaking life is, so my teacher plays into this. Is I was writing a comic book and I was worried about women, and basically it's started telling like, dude, the way you wrote the comic book, even all the way back in 7th grade, I was even better at writing my comic book in high school. But Lily, the way it was by yourself in 7th grade, oh, you gotta get them all, you already won. But then he had a conversation with a gang called Blood. So I was incredibly sexy in 7th grade, incredibly, handsome, talented. I always treated people the way I wanted to be treated, even though I couldn't face game member standards. Lily, what ends up happening is Lily, they would invite me to like parties and social events, but they were fighting people over not allowing me to do things. I believe the girl tried to ask me out, and somebody played versus I Know How to Cheat, and Lily got her separated away from me long enough in order to imprint her mind and think like a teenager instead of a normal girl. And Lily, fucking, and then those were probably the same guys who told me to ask her out, and it was the same because what Mr.Pledger did was he didn't give me any validation at all. What he did is he gave me all the validation in 7th grade, and he tried to literally say that, yo, you're an entrepreneur, you're everything already, but the crazy thing about it is you still have to grow up, you still have to deal with these kids, you still have to deal with people. Don't even think about doing it, but it was even for a worse reason. Because fuck all that, that's all superficial shit anyway. What if I told you that Mr.Pledger wanted to compliment me at times, and you know what kids do when somebody compliments you and they actually give you solid validation? And he couldn't. He already knows that's how gangs work in general. But what if I told you, he looked at that gang, he's like, are you serious? You're threatening me? Look at those eyes. You already won. Like, Lily, fucking Mr.Pledger was schooling them. And like, Lily, the only thing he wanted, like, oh, who needs girls and stuff like that? I'm just glad that I'm willing to have a student that listens, a student that Lily is willing to learn, a student that's this and that, a student that's willing to put on for other kids, a student that would do more if he could. I'm not really jealous of my student. That's why I'm playing tricks on him. I'm making you move a certain way. I'm making you act too hard to fit in. I'm purposely making jokes because I don't want you to have ill validation, because you know what gang members do? They take a piece of what you have and they make it expand, where I want you to absorb the whole thing, is what Mr.Pledger told me. So Mr.Pledger kept on, making sure that I was the best student and shit, but when it came down to how I kept on going to grades, he started doing shit on purpose, because he was doing what the gang was doing, because what a gang does is they make jokes and shit to make you jealous, and then they say, I didn't do nothing, and so that they try to get you kicked out of the school. They try to make you a class clown. They see you're calm, cool, collect, because somebody told him if he's calm, cool, collect, that means he's got to not only beat you in a fight, but he's not going to care about the pussy. We all know how girls are. When you actually don't care about them, it's the you're playing hard to get. And so what ended up happening is they were too understanding of me. And so Mr.Pledger actually wanted to talk to me like a grown-ass man, like how he talks to me today. And he heard that he could. And he heard that literally the one time that he could talk to me as an individual. So he checked, how life pans out. Like, he's kind of awkward. He's a nerd right now. He's like, let me tell you how life pans out. I'll live for a while. Oh, yeah, most definitely he's got a good woman. Oh, you might have a pair of twins too. Like, Lee, this is shit that they use for a stir machine. I can do the same thing. I can tell you how your fucking day is going to go because I'm a fucking grown man. Lily. So guess what ends up happening? Okay, so pussy's out the way, so my student's still here and stuff like that. So guess what ends up happening? Oh, capping. Oh, once he grows up, he learns that capping is this, capping is that. Okay, Lily. So what happens with my family? Oh, you gotta worry about nothing. It's because we were covered in our areas. Guess what they started to do? They used the superpower card discern machine to try to fucking take me down, because it wasn't enough, because their perspective was too much, because they all had the same perspective. So guess what they did? They not only threatened Mr.Pledger, but it was every personality. How they wrote Yumi, how they wrote Kimmy, how everything was a secret. Lily, how they trained me the rest of the year for all this time. Lily, it all was gonna come down to the point where they wanted to call me out for having imaginary fans. That's the whole reason why they wrote Yumi the way she did, and that's the reason why they wrote the CERN machine. Their whole reason was to catch criminal activities. That I was one of the government agents. Like, if you gotta keep on studying reverse psychology, and he's gonna do what it takes to graduate college, and you take everything away from him, guess what we're gonna do? We're gonna make sure, since you want to attack this thing called prime years, we're gonna take your years away from you. We're gonna make sure we live forever, because we're tired of Lily that you not giving the younger generation the chance that we had. Yeah, we won the gang fight, but we're able to make it out. But guess what? We still had to be full of shit. We had to do it based off race, based off ethnicity, based off our classes of society, instead of being able to be free. We had to absorb game. We had to absorb greed. We had to be an asshole a little bit. Like, we had to fight the game member. We had to be a game member to see how they act so we don't fall for their strategies and shit in order to protect our children. And it eats ourselves inside. So the older fucking, the biggest fucking things in times, every parent tries to deny that they were in a gang before. Every parent tries to deny, and that's why they spoil you, because anything is better than you joining a gang. The whole time, every fucking parent, it wasn't just in Tory Taylor, this is how it's been since the 90s, since literally houses were fucking established. How do I convince my kid to stay in school when I was actually a gang member was the thing that was passed on through the generations, but it didn't fucking matter because how easy it is to deal with a gang member once you have the knowledge. So, literally, gang members start using a certain machine, jealous nerds start using a certain machine. So you're telling me that you won't let me talk to my student even when he's a grown-ass man? And literally, it's like, yes, we're threatening your fucking family. Like, no. I want you to repeat that again, so you won't let me talk to my student like a grown-ass man. We're going to take away the years that matters because they heard about the Sir Machine operation and how they were trying to make humans immortal and how they were trying to literally evacuate the city and how there was going to be a time where they were going to be killing humans based off literally how they are in general. Literally fucking, where they're going to make media specifically to make people suicidal. Literally, they were going to make situations specifically for you to fucking hold on to things like Lisa's tits and Yumi. Like literally, all this was already written down. And so Mr.Pledger's like, so you're going to destroy my student and destroy the concept of life and death to the point where you're going to get your way. And so you're going to criticize him for watching a cartoon and not socializing when he was young, but you're going to use this machine to destroy this fucking world like a cartoon. He's like, yes, because we do everything to make you know that this is unfair. And so that, and guess what we can also do? We can blame his green eyes. We can blame this and that. We can blame the fact that, oh, it's not his personality. We don't have to do shit. If I see him getting girls and he looks that retarded, I don't have to do shit. But once you take off the clothes and once you get this thing called real life, you meet every fucking body in the room pointing the finger at you saying, you call this retarded? So before it gets to that point, you gotta take over the world like Pink in the Brain. Oh, I get, no I don't get it. That shit wasn't fucking funny. But guess what? It's because you made it so fucking natural. It's because you made it make so much fucking sense. It's because literally this handsome guy shouldn't be rejected by all those girls, and you're using a spiritual power to reject him by all those girls. It's the same reason why you fell flat and why I thought it was already reality. I didn't even know you're using a service with me in junior high. I didn't give a fuck because of how the older generation was anyway, because I trained like the older generation. It didn't matter what the fuck you did with the Sir Machine. God, that's the universe, that's hard work to put in, and Mr.Pledger was really bad. So what ended up happening is Mr.Pledger had to force me to try hard to fit in. He needed to force me like, Lily, I'm gonna do this thing where I'm gonna set you up with these girls there, Lily, and I'm gonna pretend that nothing fucking happened. I'm gonna make sure they live right by you. I'm gonna make sure Lily, you harass them. I'm gonna make sure you do everything because I want you to be kicked out of school to a certain sense. I want you thinking that you can make friends, but I want you to learn that, Lily, since they're not gonna make anything at school, I want you to understand. I want you to go all out in school like Lily in your head. Because literally, they defeated the whole purpose of school because they were going to use a Stern machine when I became an adult. So what Mr.Pledger did is he knocked me out. And it came down to a point where we were trying to get to geometry and the most, simplistic thing, something that a gangster can't comprehend, but something that takes discipline. It's like, I don't want you thinking this way in high school, because what ends up happening is geometry is literally shapes and how, like Lee and Pledger Dono in the series of nods, he is known for using geometry when it comes to setting up plans and compasses. I didn't even know. You know how I told you how Matt knocked me out in that video? Mr.Pledger knocked me out every single day, and I realized, and when I got to be a senior in high school, when I was a freshman, I'm like, why is Mr.Pledger still here? He was there when I was in junior high, and I realized, I thought it was because they were setting me up for sexual harassment, but no, they were protecting me. Every single time Mr.Pledger didn't give me credit, it was to protect me from a gang, and it was always the time I graduated. So literally, he made fun of me all throughout my entire high school year, didn't have my back, made sure I didn't have a single fucking girl. When I made out with a girl, he made sure somebody was there to fucking lower my God key, to lower my fucking sense, to let me know I was in denial. He's like, hey, Eris, congratulations, son. Nothing to do with Lily fucking knocking me out again. Like, not fucking cool. Like, Lily, you don't understand Lily. He understands the storyline. He understands how gangsters work. He understands Lily. I'm like, man, you're glad that fucking Snoop Dogg and Common Warner score. You're going, Eris. I would say some intellectual shit. That's only because I have the computer on. Me and my friends do is download music all day and fucking play video games. We're having intellectual conversations. Like, yeah, man, that was crazy. A dinosaur and this and that. I'm like, I know, man. And like, really, it did turn into a turtle. This shit would make the fucking mainstream rappers you listen to today mad as fuck, because you don't know how much simplistic shit that they couldn't fucking do, but all the extraordinary shit they can do. That was the whole point of like being humans back in the day. Literally, that was the whole point. I can do the after image, I can pray to be a monster, I can do this, that, I can fight people, I can dodge bullets, I can do this and that, but I can do anything but make a Justin joke. Justin is the highest of jokes in the older generation. In order to make a Justin joke, you have to go to the pen. Literally, you have to be in a state of isolation in order to fucking make jokes of that. Those jokes are made for drowning in your own shit. It got times where he had to make fun of me for years on end, but he heard that he might be able to work with me in the future. So it came down to this Indian teacher called Mr. Pavley, who was actually my height. I thought, okay, you guys are truly full of shit. You set me up where a teacher was the same height as me, and like you're trying to convince you that fucking nothing changed. But then I realized it was heavy reverse psychology, and they made me laugh every single day. Like, why the fuck are you making me laugh? And making me laugh isn't outweighing the situation. They were making me laugh at the times like Lily. Oh, Earth is a little kid. Fucking, we're gonna put him on the news. Mr.Pledger did. They used to make fun of me every single day. Lily, once I know what the urge generation to do, they can make you do something where you don't want to by thinking of something and have somebody else, fucking do it. I don't know how they do it. I don't know how they do it. Fucking, it's beyond me. But they can make you move a certain way, like Lily. So Lily, just like Matt can knock you out. I think it's kind of the same formula. So I was trying to read a book, and I was trying to learn from my mistakes, and I was trying to put the headphones down, and Lily, I'm like, no, I want to read by myself, I want to learn from my mistakes. And so Lily, out of nowhere, I recognize now that I'm older, I feel that fucking shock because now that me and him are on the same level, because now I put his weight. So they knocked me out, and they yelled at me like, I can't believe you fucking Lily with the headphones and stuff like that. Lily, you could, and then Mr. Pledger's like, yeah, man, you could barely follow along as it is, but it's crazy as fuck. They knocked me out, and I had no idea. I thought they were completely right the entire time when they were using reverse psychology. And then Lily, it came down to a time when people were fucking making fun of me because there was a time when there was this guy named Timmy, Asian Tim, Lily, not Timothy Delagale, but a guy with Lily, like black and blonde hair, like Toad Guy, and he was Lily in my freshman year. So Tim is getting his own video season 3. Tim came to school with some overhead headphones and he was slapping some basic rap, like throwing it in the bag, and Lily just normal shit that you would see, but because he didn't know how to like take a risk, he would slap it like mainstream shit. He was getting more popular than me. So what I ended up doing is Lily, I ended up downloading Jedi Mind Tricks and playing it on my phone. I ended up playing a super clean ass song. I was trying to get attention. I was playing Jedi Mind Tricks, and so this guy named Chris Lily comes like, okay, Lily, you're normally this and that, but I'm gonna give you credit for this one. Mr. Pledger's like, no, knock me out. I'm like, Lily, and then like Mr. Fag was like, man, that phone, we gotta do something about it, man. And Lily, I had no idea that they were shutting down in prison every fucking time they talked to me. It was crazy. And so after that, they're all like, man, they don't even slap with Lee. I'm like, dude, and literally, no, they're fucking controlling the kids like puppets. They making sure I get no pussy. They making sure I do this and that. I'm like, it's not the fact that you're winning. So it came down to fucking Seymour. Seymour in fucking senior year. Seymour's real name is Omar. And the crazy thing is this. So Mr. Pledger told Seymour, Lily, I'm going through all this pain. Like, I'm not getting a girl. I'm not getting a girl. He's keeping them away from me so I can mature, so I can be a man on purpose, so I can learn how to fight gang. That's literally keeping them away from me. He's not getting me credit so I can be hell-bent on fucking fact instead of literally trying to fool someone. So literally fucking Omar talked to Mr. Pledger in therapy, talking about Lily this and that. So Mr. Pledger's like, oh please, Lily, what if I told you about what's really going on, about how the girls really wanted to be nicer and stuff like that, Lily? And then he kept this away from me. I'm like, Lily, Mr. Pledger is a crazy motherfucker. You don't understand. That's why he is so nice, because he knows he's better to be a nice person. I'm telling you, don't fuck with an adult. Don't think an adult like Lily is a fucking making excuses for himself, Lily. They have this fucking misconception that every fucking adult is fucking reminiscent of his time or is running away from something. And in this life, you have to run away from certain shit. You have to run away from fucking, wild boar and fucking animals that are trying to like eat your flesh. You have to fucking, there's a thing called shelter for a fucking reason. But people will fucking push you to your fucking limits in order for you to come out of your shell. It's like, come on, man. It's fucking out there. They're all like, yes, I am running away from something. I'm running away from that fact that I had to join a gang. I'm still trying to teach my kids lesson, but guess what? I'm not letting you stop. Literally, all the work I put in to finally become a parent or you become a fake one. Literally, everything. And so Lily, because he had that secret, because he knows how life works, because I couldn't fucking, of course I'm not gonna know some shit like that when I'm in high school, but I'm fucking 20, I'm fucking basically mid-20, I'm 26 right now, he was right, but the sad part about it is they won. They won because they're desperate. They won if you fucking think like them. They put you in the mindset like, yo, if you can say, yo, fuck, we made you immortal, so fucking Lily, you didn't get to talk to your student when life or death means something. Is that why you took life and death away? Lily, you don't understand, like, Lily, we don't fucking care anymore, Lily. It has nothing to do with greed. It has something to do with the time you stole from us. Lily, and fucking, he wanted to really be on terms with me. He wanted to compliment me. You don't think he wanted to compliment on Lily, me surpassing all that package, but knowing that I'm handsome, knowing that I have to deal with a gang, knowing that I'm making gang members move slowly but surely. He had to fight gang. Lily, the gang was doing that after images. He was doing that after images. Lily, they were both Lily knocking me out. I'm trying to take our perspective and shit. I'm trying to tell you, it's fucking crazy. It was a total war. Like, Lily, now that I know how things work, they're training me the entire time. Like, Lily, you already have the girl. Now you have to be strong enough to, Lily, all that was is training enough to protect the girl. I'm telling you, man, it's crazy as shit. It was crazy as fuck because they tried to, like, Lily, make us feel bad. But I'm like, fuck out of here. Fuck out of here because you don't understand. couldn't just laugh at you like know adults should be able to laugh at a gang member. Like, aha, reputation, because you ended up really trying to use a superpower and shit. Literally, you're trying to enable more shit, and you don't understand that shit is literally fucking outrageous. So Lily, at the end, Lily, where I graduated, I saw him, Lily, pushing his granddaughter on the swings where I was swinging at. Lily, touching her butt on purpose, Lily, like, oh, you're not going high enough. You're not going high. But now that I know the full situation, he felt, he's like, I'm sorry. He's like, Lily, that whole time where he knocked me out, where he didn't get credit, he's like, I'm sorry. They beat me. They beat me by being desperate. They did give me my student at a time where it so-called mattered because of Lily, all the fucking so-called work they put in to try to put me down. I had no idea that he was knocking me out every day, but it was insane. Now that I know, it's literally fucking, it's cool now because now fucking we're working together now, but at the same time, it's fucking awful. Like, literally, no one wants to be that desperate.